Family grieves after a mother of three is killed. Her ex-boyfriend admits to the crime, and police say she was shot while she was making a TikTok video. This is Wave News at 6. I'm John Ball.
And I'm Myra Ansari. 25-year-old Kaitlynn Lee was shot and killed Saturday while staying with her three children at a friend's apartment in New Albany. Police say that they could see her and the friend in the video lip-syncing, laughing and dancing just before the deadly shot was fired.
Investigators say Joshua Thompson admitted to pulling the trigger. He now faces murder and other charges.
Kaitlynn Lee told her friend something that would haunt everyone who knew her. "If I'm ever found dead, Joshua killed me." She said it like she knew, like she could see what was coming. And on August 10th, 2024, at 5 in the morning, while she was making a TikTok video and trying to live her life, Joshua Thompson proved her right, shot her through a window, killed the mother of his child. Let me tell you something. This woman spent her last 3 months running, hiding, moving from place to place, and it still wasn't enough. When the clock strikes midnight, the truth comes out. I'm 12 a.m. crime, and every single day I bring you real cases of domestic violence that turn deadly. The stories the system tried to bury, the victims who deserve justice. If you're about that raw, unfiltered truth, hit subscribe. New case drops every day at midnight. Don't sleep on justice. This is 12 a.m. crime. Kaitlynn Lee was only 25 years old, but she'd already lived through more loss than most people see in a lifetime. She was a mother to 3 children, 3 kids who depended on her for everything. But before Joshua Thompson came into her life, Kaitlynn was dealing with grief that would break most people. Her fiancé had committed suicide. The man she was supposed to build a life with, gone. And not long after that, she lost her father too. 2 of the most important men in her life, both taken from her in ways that left no closure, no warning, just emptiness. So when Joshua Thompson showed up during all that pain, she fell for him. That's what grief does sometimes. It makes you reach for anything that feels like comfort, even when that comfort comes wrapped in red flags you're too hurt to see. Thompson became the father of her youngest child. That baby was supposed to be a new chapter, a reason to keep pushing forward. But instead, that relationship became the thing that would eventually take her life. Her family says Kaitlynn was a loving mother, the kind of woman who put her kids first, no matter what. But loving your kids and trying to protect them from a dangerous man are 2 very different battles, and Kaitlynn was fighting both at the same time. April 2024, that's when everything came to a head the first time. Kaitlynn called her aunt, Pamela Greenwell. She needed help. When Pamela showed up to get her, Kaitlynn was covered in bruises, blue and black all over her body. Joshua Thompson had beaten her so badly that there was no hiding it, no making excuses. This wasn't a push or a slap. This was a man trying to break her down physically. Pamela took her niece in, got her to safety, and Thompson was arrested. They issued an emergency protective order, an EPO, to keep him away from Kaitlynn. On paper, it looked like the system was working. He was in Floyd County Jail. She had legal protection. She could breathe for a second. But here's the thing about pieces of paper. They don't stop bullets. After that beating in April, Kaitlynn started moving. Not just once, 4 times, 4 different places in 3 months. Think about that for a second. Every few weeks, packing up your life, your kids, trying to find somewhere he wouldn't find you. Staying with family, then friends. Never settling, never feeling safe. That's not living. That's surviving. And her friend, the one who was with her that night in August, told police that Kaitlynn and Joshua were always at odds with each other. Always. Not sometimes. Not occasionally. Always. But it was more than just being at odds. Kaitlynn knew something the rest of us can only see in hindsight. She looked her friend in the eye and said those words, "If I'm ever found dead, Joshua killed me." Now, you don't say something like that unless you feel it in your bones, unless you know the man you're running from is capable of taking everything from you. She wasn't being dramatic. She was being realistic. Moving on to August. By this point, Kaitlynn thought she'd finally gotten some distance. She was staying at a friend's apartment on Village Drive in New Albany, Indiana. Her 3 kids were with her. She was trying to create some sense of normal for them, trying to give them a life that didn't revolve around fear. And for a moment, maybe she thought she'd actually escaped him. August 10th, 2024. 5 o'clock in the morning. Most people are still asleep at that hour, but Kaitlynn and her friend were up in the kitchen. They were making a TikTok video. Just 2 women laughing, dancing, lip-syncing to a song. Nothing deep, nothing serious. Just a moment of lightness in what had been a heavy few months for Kaitlynn. The kind of moment that should have been forgettable. The kind you scroll past without thinking twice. But this video would become evidence. Police later reviewed that TikTok footage, and here's what they saw. Kaitlynn and her friend dancing, smiling, completely unaware. Then, at some point in the video, they both stop. They turn away from the camera. There's a blast. You can see it in the frame. Smoke hanging in the room like a ghost. And then the video cuts off. That's it. That's how fast it happened. 1 second, she's alive. The next, she's gone. But let's back up to the moment before the shot. Kaitlynn and her friend heard banging on the window. Loud, aggressive banging. Not a knock, not a tap. Banging. The kind that makes your heart drop because you already know something's wrong. Kaitlynn turned toward the window, and that's when she saw him, Joshua Thompson, standing outside with a gun in his hand. She asked him, "What are you doing here?" That was her last question, because Joshua Thompson answered with a bullet. He knocked on that window with the barrel of his handgun, hard enough to shatter the glass, and then he pulled the trigger. Shot Kaitlynn Lee in the head, right there in her friend's kitchen, right in front of a witness. The gun was later recovered outside the window with a single spent shell casing next to it. 1 shot. That's all it took to destroy 3 children's lives, to prove Kaitlynn's worst fears true, and to end a woman who'd already been through too much. Her friend stood there, helpless, watching it happen. Can you imagine that? Being in the room when someone you care about gets murdered, seeing the smoke, hearing the sound, knowing there's nothing you can do? That kind of trauma doesn't just go away. That friend will carry that moment for the rest of her life. Kaitlynn was rushed to University of Louisville Hospital, but she didn't make it. She died from that gunshot wound to her head. 25 years old, mother of 3, dead because a man couldn't handle the fact that she didn't want him anymore. So here's where Joshua Thompson's story gets even more twisted. After he shot Kaitlynn, he didn't run. He didn't try to hide. He called his brother. His brother later told investigators that Thompson was on the phone, crying and distraught. Crying. Like he didn't just commit murder, like he was the victim in all this. His brother, probably in shock himself, told Joshua to call the police, and he did. Joshua Thompson dialed 911 and told the dispatcher, "I shot the mother of my child." Just like that. Calm enough to make the call, coherent enough to confess. But let's be clear, calling 911 after you murder someone doesn't make you remorseful. It just makes you aware that you're caught. When New Albany police officers arrived at the scene, they found exactly what that TikTok video had already shown them. A woman with a gunshot wound to the head, a shattered window, and a weapon outside with one spent shell casing. The evidence was overwhelming. There was no mystery here, no whodunit. The killer had already turned himself in, but when detectives interviewed Joshua Thompson, he filled in the blanks they needed for the full picture. He admitted that there was an active no-contact order against him. He knew he wasn't supposed to be anywhere near Kaitlynn. He admitted that Kaitlynn was the one who filed for that order, and then he told them why he showed up at that apartment at 5 in the morning. He wanted to see if Kaitlynn was there with other men. Let that sink in for a second. This man violated a court order, drove to an apartment where he knew Kaitlynn was staying, brought a loaded gun, and shot her in the head, all because he wanted to check if she was with someone else. She wasn't his girlfriend anymore. She wasn't his partner. She had every legal right to be with whoever she wanted. But in Joshua Thompson's mind, Kaitlynn still belonged to him, and if he couldn't have her, nobody could. He admitted to police that he knocked on the window with the barrel of his gun, hard enough to break the glass, and he admitted to pulling the trigger. There was no accident, no claim of self-defense, no story where he tried to make himself look better. He did it. He knew he did it. And he told the police exactly how it went down. The new Albany Police Department, along with Chief Todd Bailey, made it clear that this was a case rooted in domestic violence. Joshua Thompson had a history. That April incident, where he beat Kaitlynn so badly she was covered in bruises, that wasn't the first time. Court records showed he was charged on April 17th with felony domestic battery committed in the presence of a child less than 16 years old. In the presence of a child, that means one of those kids, maybe even his own, watched him hurt their mother. 3 weeks later, a no-contact order was issued, and it meant absolutely nothing.
Kaitlynn Lee's family tells a very heartbreaking story here, John. They talk about how this young mother was moving around from family to friends, all as she was trying to stay away from a violent ex-boyfriend. At 25, Kaitlynn Lee had already endured a lifetime of loss. A loving mother of 3, her family says she was grieving the death of her fiancé who committed suicide, and she had also lost her father. That's when they say she fell for Joshua Thompson, who became the father of her youngest child. The same man who admitted to police on Saturday he shot the mother of his child in the head through a window of the New Albany apartment where she was staying. Kaitlynn's aunt was in the courtroom as Thompson was led in.
Being around him for as long as what we've been around him, I thought he would at least not be as much of a coward to not even try to make eye contact with us, and he didn't even try to make eye contact with anyone coming in or going out of the courthouse. I think that was the least he could have done.
Pamela Greenwell described how Kaitlynn had moved 3 times in the last 4 months, trying to stay away from Thompson after their relationship ended violently.
In April of this year, she called me, and he had beat her really badly, and I went and picked her up, and she was blue and black all over. He was arrested and brought down here to Floyd County Jail. They issued an EPO to protect Kaitlynn, and it didn't protect her. It just didn't protect her.
A trial date is set for March. Thompson is being held without bail. In the meantime, Kaitlynn's aunt struggles with the burden of her loss, and she wonders how she will explain what happened to her children. The family is also struggling tonight with how to pay for Kaitlynn's funeral that is coming up. They've started a GoFundMe page, and they still need thousands for what they need. Reporting live, David Mattingly, Wave News.
All right.
On August 12th, just 2 days after Kaitlynn's murder, Joshua Thompson had his initial hearing. The courtroom was packed with people who loved Kaitlynn, family members who were still processing the fact that she was gone, friends who couldn't believe this had actually happened. And then there was Joshua Thompson, the man who took her away from all of them. Kaitlynn's cousin, Kaitlyn's aunt, was there. She sat in that courtroom, and watched as Thompson was brought in, and you know what he did? Nothing. He didn't look at anyone, didn't make eye contact with the family, didn't even try to face the people whose lives he'd just destroyed. Zant later said she thought he would at least have the decency to look at them, to acknowledge what he'd done. But no, he kept his head down like a coward. The charges against Joshua Thompson tell the full story: murder, invasion of privacy, criminal recklessness, and unlawful carrying of a handgun. The judge set his trial date for March 24, 2025, and ordered him held without bond in the Floyd County Detention Center. No bail, no chance of getting out, because everyone in that courtroom knew exactly what he was capable of. Floyd County Prosecutor Chris Lane made it clear that this case was being taken seriously. He told the press that relationships can lead to tragic results, and unfortunately, in this case, that's exactly what happened. Thompson admitted to police that he drove to that apartment, that he pulled the trigger, that he killed Kaitlynn. There was no defense here, just a man who decided that if he couldn't control her, he'd eliminate her. Kaitlynn Lee left behind 3 children, 3 kids who will grow up without their mother, 3 kids who will have to be told, eventually, that their father killed their mother, or in the case of her other children, that their mother's ex-boyfriend took her from them. That's a burden no child should ever have to carry. But that's the reality for these babies now. Her family rallied around those children immediately. They held a balloon release in Kaitlynn's memory, a moment for the community to come together and show support. Friends and family wrote messages on the balloons, things they wanted to say to Kaitlynn, things they wanted her 3 children to have when they're old enough to understand what happened. Messages to remind them that their mother was loved by so many people, that she mattered, that her life meant something beyond the way it ended. Pamela Greenwell, Kaitlynn's aunt, spoke about the emergency protective order that was supposed to keep her niece safe. They issued an EPO to protect Kaitlynn, she said, and it didn't protect her. It just didn't protect her. Make it make sense. A woman does everything right. She leaves, she files the paperwork, she moves 4 times in 3 months. She gets the law on her side, and she still ends up dead. That's the reality of domestic violence in this country. Pieces of paper don't stop determined men with guns. The family also started a GoFundMe to help cover the costs of Kaitlynn's funeral and burial. They're struggling not just with grief, but with the financial burden of laying her to rest. And they're trying to figure out how to explain to 3 young children why their mother isn't coming home. Kaitlyn's aunt said they made notes for the kids, something they can look back on when they're older, so they can understand who their mother really was and how much she was loved. This case sparked conversations across the country about domestic violence and the systems that fail to protect women, like Kaitlynn. Her story went beyond New Albany, beyond Indiana. People from all over the United States joined in demanding justice for Kaitlynn Lee. But here's the truth. Justice won't bring her back. A guilty verdict won't give those 3 children their mother. A life sentence won't undo the trauma her friend experienced watching her die in that kitchen. Tammy Taylor, who works with the Center for Women and Families, said that survivors of domestic violence often become accustomed to the abuse. They may not feel safe reaching out, may not feel comfortable making phone calls or asking for help. That's why the center offers mobile advocacy. They meet survivors where they are, whether that's a grocery store, a parking lot, anywhere the survivor feels they can talk safely, because sometimes the home isn't safe, sometimes nowhere feels safe. According to the CDC, 1 in 4 women experiences physical violence by their partner. 1 in 4, that's not a small number. That's millions of women living in fear, trying to escape, trying to survive. And for every Kaitlynn Lee whose story makes the news, There are countless others whose names we'll never know. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, there are resources available. The 24/7 crisis hotline is 1-844-237-2331. You can also call 211 for Metro United Way. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't become another statistic. Kaitlynn Lee told her friend, "If I'm ever found dead, Joshua killed me." She knew, and she couldn't escape it. But maybe someone listening to this story right now can. Maybe someone watching this video will reach out for help before it's too late. That's the only way Kaitlynn's death means anything, if it saves someone else's life. Rest in peace, Kaitlynn Lee. You deserved so much better.